Good evening and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the July 17, 2018 meeting of the Downers Grove Village Council. It is my pleasure to call this meeting to order. If you haven't already done so, there are copies of our agenda on a shelf on either side of the room. Please feel free to pick one up and you can follow along with tonight's proceeding. There will be multiple opportunities for public comment, both with respect to things that are on tonight's agenda, as well as a segment which is under item 4, which is reserved for public comments of a general nature with respect to things that are not on tonight's agenda. At that point in the meeting, any members of the public who would like to ask a question or make a comment of a general nature, again, with respect to things not on tonight's agenda, the protocol is please come up to the podium, tell us who you are, and we would welcome hearing from you at that point in time. But first, it is our proud custom to begin our meetings by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. So at this time, I ask everyone present to please rise and join us in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dynamite, thank you. And now I'd like to ask our fine village clerk, April Holden, to please call the roll.
Commissioner Wallace?
Here.
Commissioner Earl?
Here.
Commissioner Waldeck? Commissioner White?
Here.
Commissioner Jose?
Here.
Commissioner Barnett? Mayor Tully?
Here, thank you very much. That brings us to item 3, which pertains to approval of minutes of past council meetings. We have one set of minutes to review and approve tonight. Those are the minutes from our regular council meeting of July 10th, 2018. If there are no changes, questions, comments, corrections, or concerns, I would invite a motion to approve, please.
Martelli, I move the council approve the meeting minutes from July 10th, 2018 as presented.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. And just like that, before your seat even got warm, we are at item 4, which is reserved for public comments of a general nature. If any members of the audience have any questions or comments of a general nature with respect to things that are not on tonight's agenda, I invite you to please come to the podium, tell us who you are, and welcome hearing from you. All right, hearing that there are none, we'll move on to our consent agenda, which is item 5. Bless you. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Martelli, I move the council approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to any of the items on tonight's consent agenda? Any questions or concerns from members of the village council? Hearing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. Consent agenda passes unanimously. That brings us to item 6, which is our active agenda. We have 2 items on tonight's active agenda. First is item 6A. Do I have a motion to adopt a resolution granting historic landmark designation status for 1514 Thornwood Drive, otherwise known as the Ernest E. Bungie House?
Martelli, I move the council adopt a resolution granting historic landmark designation for 1514 Thornwood Drive as presented.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to this item? Any questions or comments from members of the village council?
Do we know how many this is now?
I was going to ask that very question.
22. It stands out here behind me, so 22.
That is awesome. We're going to get to 25 before the end of the year. Just mark my words. Very good. Then I'm going to call for the roll and then invite the property owners to please come up and receive the certificate of official landmark designation for their beautiful home. Roll call, please.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The matter passes unanimously, and congratulations. We now have our 22nd landmark home in the village of Downers Grove, which is terrific. So I'd like to ask Michelle to please come up. Usually our public information director has a nice little X right there where we know where to stand. But I'll have to, congratulations. Thank you very much. Congratulations. This is yours, and we'll stand for the photo. That's the official one.
And then the volunteer photo. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to thank the Village Council for considering and accepting this home as to be a landmarked house. I can't say how happy I am to see that the village has taken the stance to try to preserve some of its historic homes and in the town in order to protect our long heritage that we've had in Downers Grove, and again, just thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, because we couldn't do it without your participation, and thank you for contributing to something that not only current generations, but many, many generations to come will enjoy, and know that we mean our motto when we say that Downers Grove preserves the balance between tradition and progress. Thank you. Very good. That brings us to item 6B as in boy on our agenda tonight. Do I have a motion to adopt an ordinance providing for regulation of and application for small wireless facilities?
Martelli, I move the council adopt an ordinance providing for the regulation of an application for small wireless facilities as presented.
Second.
Any questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to this item? Questions or comments from members of the village council? I won't repeat what I said last week. Roll call, please.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye, that matter passes unanimously. That brings us to the end of our active agenda and on to item 7, which is our first reading or our workshop agenda. We have one item on tonight's workshop agenda, and the first reading is a little bit different than the active agenda in that we treat this a little less formally. Staff will present the item, the village council will discuss it, ask any questions, and then we'll open it up for any questions or comments from the audience before coming back to the village council. No final action or decisions will be made on this item this evening, but maybe at a future council meeting. With that, I'd like to introduce our very own Downers Grove Village Manager, Dave Fieldman. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Tully. Thank you for the great introduction. Just one item on tonight's first reading agenda, which is an award of contract for culvert rehabilitation. And here to explain background information on this item is our Public Works Director, Nan Newland.
Good evening, our award-winning Public Works Director, Nan Newland. How are you tonight?
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Dave said, we have one item tonight. It is a award of bid for a design-build contract for culvert rehabilitation to Martam Construction of Elgin in the amount of $774,420. These are rather large culverts. They aren't your typical driveway culvert. These are basically quasi-bridges. They span roads in the village and carry sections of the creek. The first two are on Lacey Creek here. It's between Highland Avenue and the Tollway. The first one's on Barneswood Drive, and the second one's on Saratoga. These both are rather large structures. I have a photo here to show you one of them. It's two structures side by side, one elliptical pipe and one round pipe. They're corrugated metal inside, and over the years that metal has gotten eaten away from chemicals and just the abrasiveness of the water. So that is the one of the two. The second one is a round culvert, the one at Saratoga. Those both are planned to be removed and replaced. The next one is on Springside Avenue, which is St. Joe's Creek. This is two box culverts, or concrete box culverts, and there's a photo here, 8 feet by 6 feet. Two of them side by side, you can see on the top, and these really do look like a bridge. It's kind of hard to see in the bottom photo in the dark, but the concrete is deteriorating on these. So this is one of the three that's being proposed. The one that's different about this particular culvert is the contract only includes the design and the permitting for it, because there's some unknowns about exactly what we want to put back in this location, if this is the right size, the right length. So we didn't have enough specifics to get a good number for bidding. So the contractor is going to do the engineering and design, and then we'll go out to bid for this separately next year. So the scope of work, as I said, includes design, permitting, which is extensive because it's all in the floodway, and then it'll include construction for the two along Lacey Creek. It also includes resident engineering services, and it's planned, we'll start that work now, get the permitting design essentially done this year, possibly get a contract out for award this fall, and get possibly some work started this year, most likely next year. So Martam has completed two projects for the village, Davis Street storm sewer improvements in 2011, as well as Washington Street storm sewer improvements, as well as a variety of other organizations, and staff recommends award of the contract to Martam for this design-build contract. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Nan. Appreciate the presentation. Any questions or comments from members of the village council? Obviously, this is a reflection of the ongoing major investment that we make in our extensive infrastructure. Any questions or comments from members of the audience? Very good, thank you. Good to see you.
And that ends our first reading tonight. Thank you.
I feel like it was over before it started. Okay, well, that brings us to item 8, which is the mayor's report. I have a couple things to report tonight. First, I want to congratulate our finance department and our finance director, Judy Butney, once again for the 9th year in a row, receiving the Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Presentation for the 2018 municipal budget document. We've got to make it 10 in a row. Then I think it'll be one of those dynasties in terms of distinguished budgets, is what I understand. That was supposed to be humorous. Thank you. All right, there we go. We need a laugh track.
Oh, okay.
All right, thanks. See, now maybe if the first reading was a little longer, people would have kind of relaxed, woken up a little bit. But seriously, congratulations to Judy and her team for achieving another accomplishment for the 9th year in a row. That truly is quite remarkable and an indication of the high performance that we see out of our finance department. The second item is I want to remind everyone in the audience and those watching at home that this Saturday, July 21st, from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m., right outside the Downers Grove Main Street train station, we will be holding our monthly Coffee with the Council. This is an opportunity for members of the community to come by, ask any questions, meet with the council. It's always a great opportunity to do that in the summertime because we see people who will come by who aren't necessarily planning on talking to the council. They're going to get their donuts or their produce or whatever else they might be getting at the market, and it occurs to them, gosh, I'd like to share something with a member of the village council. And as long as it doesn't involve hurling any produce, we always welcome any questions or comments from members of the public. So I just want to remind everybody that will be taking place this Saturday from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. And that's all I have to report. That now brings us to item 9, which is for no village attorneys reporting. You slipped that off on me. All right. Well, I at least wanted to say hello. That brings us to item 9, which pertains to council member reports. This is an opportunity for members of the village council to report out either interesting things going on in the community that they want to share with others, or to report out on something pertinent with respect to their role as a liaison to another board or commission or public body. So I'll start with Commissioner Jose to my right. Any report?
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Wallace.
No report, Mayor. Thanks.
Commissioner Earl.
I have something. The Park District continues to have their Tuesday night concert at the park at Fishel Park Band Shell. We're going to have a few weeks in a row off here, so that might be a good place to be instead if you're used to watching us. Also, the library is collecting for canned foods and foodstuffs for Fish Food Pantry. So if you're in the area and going to the library, think about bringing some non-perishables and dropping them off at the library. That is all, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Commissioner White.
And no report.
And I have no further report. So at this point in time, what we will be doing is I will be asking for a motion to recess into the committee room, which is just next door, where the village manager, previously introduced to you, Dave Fieldman, will present information on a potential pure jury program. So what I'm going to ask to do is that in about 5 minutes, we reconvene across the hall for that topic. But in the meantime, I need to ask for a motion to recess to the committee room to discuss the manager's report.
Until I move the council recess to the committee room to discuss the manager's report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. The ayes have it. We are recessed to the committee room, and we'll pick up the conversation there in about 5 minutes. I don't think it should take too long to get everybody over there, and look forward to seeing you then. Topic is exclusively a discussion of information with respect to a potential pure jury program. So with that, I will reintroduce our village manager, Dave Fieldman, who will present the item for discussion by the village council first, and then we'll open it up for questions and comments from the audience before coming back. Once again, this is an informational discussion only. There won't be any final action or formal action taken on this topic tonight. Mr. Fieldman.
Thank you, Mayor Tully. This is a priority action item identified by this council, part of our work plan for this council's 2-year period. The action item is to identify and implement one major service consolidation, cooperation, or collaboration. And tonight, as the mayor said, we're talking about a potential peer jury program. For some background, Downers Grove Township operated a peer jury program for quite a long time, and they suspended that program about a year ago, July of 2017. In February of this year, the village council directed staff to analyze options for peer jury, both local options for the village of Downers Grove and perhaps an expansion into a regional partnership, much like the township program. There is a very extensive and easy-to-read report that was published last week. I want to take a minute to thank the authors of that report. I think it was fantastic. Megan Miles, Deputy Chief Mike DeVries were the authors of that report. They did a fantastic job. Well done. Also contributed Chief Gillette and Village Attorney Enzo Pacharkas. So if you hadn't had a chance to read that report, I think it does a great job of conveying lots of information quickly. One of the key elements of the report, it shows up in the executive summary on page 4, where there is a table which outlines the 4 options that the village staff has identified for council consideration. We recognize there are probably an infinite number of options, but these are the 4 that I think capture the spectrum. We sort of recreated this table here on the whiteboard. It's actually changed in sort of how it's laid out, but it's the same table. Option 1, we could continue as a village to use the system we've been using since the peer jury was suspended. The major component of how we deal with juvenile offenders on minor offenses is a tool or an interaction called a station adjustment. A station adjustment is a process where a juvenile officer, a police officer, meets with a juvenile offender and their parent or guardian, and they come up with a written agreement. These agreements can be informal, not signed. They could be formal, executed by both parties, and basically they include conditions or a set of expected behaviors to be completed by the offender, and if the agreement is adhered to, no further action is taken. So that's basically our current system. Since peer jury was suspended, we have not treated any of the cases that would have gone to peer jury. We have not taken any of those cases to court. They've all been handled with station adjustments. So option 1 is really no change. Continue with our current system that we've been using for about a year. Option 2 is to expand our current system such that station adjustments would have 2 new components to it, and that is basically under the station adjustment program, the officers could assign juvenile offenders certain assignments similar to the types of sentences that would have been occurring at previous peer juries, things like apology letters to victims. The other thing might be perhaps assignments for participation in community service, those types of things. So elements of peer jury type sentencing into our system handled between the officer, the offender, and their parents. So option 2 is the expansion of our current system. Option 3 is the creation of a peer jury program that would be operated by the village of Downers Grove for our residents only. You can see the attributes of this here up on the board. It has check marks in all the boxes except for municipal collaboration throughout the region. And option 4 is the regional peer jury option. It is the closest thing to the reinstatement of a township level program. It's got literally checks all the boxes that we put up when we compared these options. A couple of things to note. Number 1, while it is true that every taxpayer dollar counts, it is important in the grand scheme of things, we are talking about very small dollars net cost to a village at a maximum of under $5,000. For reference, we have about a $45 million a year operating budget. Second comment I want to make is since the township suspended the peer jury program, there has been a change in Illinois law which does affect certain aspects of dealing with juvenile offenders. It was the Juvenile Records Act amendment. It became effective on January 1st. Basically, the law states that municipalities, police departments are not allowed to share information or documents regarding juvenile offenses with basically anybody outside of law enforcement. We do expect that the General Assembly will take up some further discussion, maybe further amendments to the Juvenile Records Act in the veto session this fall. It should be noted that some peer jury programs that have been operating in the state have ceased operating because of the Juvenile Records Act amendment. The concern is that sharing records with peer jurors is a violation of this law, and violation of the law comes with civil and criminal penalties to the municipality. So I wanted to point that out. We're hopeful, whatever option the council directs us to, folks in law enforcement are hoping for amendments to that bill regardless later this year. And one final note, if the council chooses to give us direction tonight or at any point in the future, the council suggests we should look at options 3 or 4. We have a set of recommendations. Number 1, we think any peer jury program should begin in January of 2019. That would allow us to get ready for the program, recruit jurors, train jurors, et cetera, and hopefully allow for the anticipated amendment to the Juvenile Records Act. Number 2, we recommend that the program initially be operated by Village of Downers Grove staff. This will allow us to concentrate on the elements of the operating elements of the program before we shift into potential use of any volunteers to help us with the program. And recommendation point number 3, we like to take a look at how any peer jury program is doing, whether it meets the expectation of the community, staff, and the council. 6 months would be a great review period, so it would coincide with the end of the school year. So if directed, we would sort of re-look at it and have an assessment of it in front of the council probably late June of 2019. There's much more information in the report. We're happy to answer any questions you may have. Also, our leadership from the police department and village attorney are prepped and ready to answer any questions also. Mayor?
Great. Well, thank you very much, Dave, and thank you to everyone who was involved in putting together this very detailed and easy to read report on a topic of great interest within our community and beyond. It seems to me that a few things become apparent. I will share with my colleagues. One, obviously we are always striving to cut costs while maintaining services at a level of performance that our constituents expect. But it is rare that we have an opportunity to provide a service that at a minimum is perceived, if not actually measurable value to the community and beyond, at what is essentially a nominal cost. We don't get those opportunities very often. And I would say, actually, compared to something, I'm just going to pick on it because it's an easy one, the contribution, God bless you, the contribution that we make every year to DuPage Senior Citizens Council for the Meals on Wheels program is substantially 10 times larger than this. But the justification, I would argue, would be the same. There's a segment of our community that benefits from it, and so we make a investment in that because it has fairly widespread benefits to our community and constituents. This, by comparison, is a fraction of the cost. However, whatever option you choose, and it's just, I rarely see opportunities to provide a service that is of value to the community and beyond at what is essentially a nominal cost. So I'm very intrigued about pursuing that. Obviously, it was incumbent upon us to understand what the real costs, both in terms of hours and dollars, were before pursuing it. So I appreciate the detailed analysis. The other observation I'll make is, of course, I've always been a big fan of cooperation, collaboration, and consolidation. And this is potentially a terrific example of intergovernmental cooperation. So I would be very interested in pursuing option number 4 for that reason, because it, again, would be a terrific opportunity for intergovernmental cooperation. And I think at least finding out if there are other governments who want to cooperate with us is something that we should do. I don't know why we wouldn't ask that question. I understand that's one of the steps that staff has recommended, that if we decide to go forward with some version of this, that one of the first steps would be to find out would communities who had previously participated and benefited from a peer jury system participate with the Village of Downers Grove. I would hope that that would be the case, and also would be more than happy to peer-to-peer, if you will, no pun intended, with leaders in other communities to encourage them to do so. And I know that Chief Gillette would do likewise with his peers in the police departments of other communities. And let's find out whether there's participation at that level. Because again, I think it's an opportunity to provide a service of significant value, one that far outstrips the nominal costs, and certainly consistent with other things we've done, or much greater investment, and also a great opportunity for intergovernmental cooperation. So I really appreciate the report. I know everyone read it very carefully, and it would seem to me certainly worth pursuing option 4, and hopefully if we get the intergovernmental cooperation that we think, I think this would be a worthwhile pursuit, and again, it's sort of a rare opportunity to do something at little to no cost that has great value. I am, of course, cautious about the current state of the law, and I'm hopeful that that can be navigated in some fashion, but I don't see why that can't proceed in parallel. I know we're not the only community that would be raising that issue with the General Assembly. We may even know somebody in the General Assembly that we can ask to carry a bill that would address this issue. So I don't see any reason why we can't pursue this. At least that's just my thinking based on the excellent analysis. So those are my thoughts. But I'll open it up to my colleagues for any questions or comments or discussion. Commissioner?
Well, essentially, I pretty much concur with everything you just said. So,
Excellent. Motion to adjourn.
So rather than repeat what you said, because I basically repeat everything you just said, what I would add is that regarding operational details, I have great confidence in our staff, I have great confidence in our police department, and I'd want to give them flexibility to develop the operational rules as they go along, and I have my total confidence that they'll do a good job of that. And finally, I haven't really looked into this in any great detail. Apparently, there is a little bit of controversy about whether, regarding the Juvenile Records Act, whether a parent can sign a waiver, whether that's valid or not. So, while a trailer bill, a bill to amend the law is obviously the very best solution, we actually should not wait for that to happen, because there's the possibility that there'll be a ruling that a parent could waive it, and therefore but I don't want to answer that question tonight. There's a lot of liability and risk.
Right.
But between
there
now
may
and
be more
January,
than one way to skin that cat, but we don't need to go into the weeds tonight about what the effect of a waiver would be on any purported civil cause of private right of action.
That's complicated.
I'm with you.
That's very complicated, but nonetheless, that's not a reason to slow down this evening.
I concur.
So?
There are many peer jury programs in Illinois that have continued to operate, and they just modified their waivers.
And whether that's valid or not is yet to be determined. So that's...
I could certainly argue that it would be, but...
We can argue both ways. But nonetheless, as far as this evening is concerned, I don't see that as a reason to pause in any way. Just that's an issue to address before we start operating in January. That's pretty much it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Jose?
Thank you, Mayor. I won't belabor the point too long. I think option 4 is the way to go. I agree with pretty much everything the mayor has said and Commissioner White has said. I would love to see us move forward with this. I think there's tremendous value. There is tremendous value here, especially compared with the cost. And I just want to thank everybody, from my colleagues for pushing this forward on new business to everybody on staff. You did a tremendous job with this report. I think one of the reasons I was confident in bringing it forward was that I knew that staff would come through yet again and finding a better way to build a mousetrap, and you've done it. And just thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I don't mean to repeat, but I'm going to a little bit. I concur with my colleagues that have spoken thus far. As an educator, I know the benefit to this program. I also just attended a restorative justice workshop at the beginning of June, which was extremely interesting. So this is a beneficial program for those who serve on the jury and for the offender. So I'm interested in exploring option 4.
Very good.
Well, then let me make it unanimous.
Commissioner Earl.
Let's go with 4. Let's take a look and see how it goes. I think it's the best option.
All right. The other two are not here, so too bad. Well, I'm sure we'll get the comments of Commissioner Waldeck and Commissioner Barnett at some other point, but let me pause then, unless there's anything that anyone else wants to say. So before we end up with the obligatory, do you have sufficient direction question, I'll open it up to any public questions or any questions or comments from members of the public. Yes, sir.
I just had one comment. I saw in council questions and answers posted today that you're thinking of jurors who had previous training, retraining them again in village processes. And I'm not going to dispute that at this meeting. I would, though, if you're going to do that, you might want to consider that schedule more carefully, whether you can recruit, because you're essentially going to be recruiting from scratch if you do that, and whether you can recruit and train by January 2019. I don't know. I mean, that was the one concern I had when I saw that.
Fair question. Very good question. My experience, though, is that our staff follows the old mantra of under-promise and over-deliver. So I'm guessing that was probably built in.
I'm sure the staff can do that, and I'm not going to get into a dispute with a CALEA accredited department. At the same time, I'm more worried about the students.
Sure.
Getting the student, finding the students, particularly the older ones. I mean, if you tell them they're going to have to retrain, you may lose some.
Fair point.
I think the training's already started. I see a student right back there. So. You know what, if we run into issues that you're talking about, Mr. Gramich, about timing and training and recruiting, we'll report back to the community and the council if we have to adjust the timeline. Well, that's a good point. We're great at a lot of things here at the village. This is an area we're not that familiar with. It's new to us, so you may be right. If that is an issue, we'll report it out to you.
Sure. Thanks for the question. Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I want to applaud all of you for taking this issue on. I think that I was a member of the peer jury program. I was the coordinator and moderator, for 15 of the 17 years at the township. I'm actually still at the township, but I'm in senior services now. I'm a parent. My son was in the peer jury program in the early days. He graduated in 2002. I've lived in Downers Grove for 35 years, lived in Hinsdale, lived in Westmont, so I've lived all over the township. I had kids that went to Downers Grove South, I went to Hinsdale Central, so I'm very familiar with all the high schools here and what it takes for these kids and what kind of training went into the program and how it all evolved. I think that I'm very encouraged that you want to do a regional peer jury. I think that's probably your best choice option. It is a year out from when you stopped it, but there probably still are a lot of jurors that were in the program that were trained that would be able to jump on board. However, when you're doing the Village of Downers Grove program, if you're thinking of just doing the Downers Grove North and South high schools at this point, then that would eliminate some of that, the bulk of that group. But we also had a lot of students from Downers Grove North and South High School. Westmont, very few, probably Hinsdale Central next and Hinsdale South. So you do have, there's names out there. All you have to do is find them. You still have all of the community service sites that would definitely be on board with doing this again. So we had all the service sites that were lined up that were assigned, where the kids were assigned. I mean, I know you're looking at all these different options, but it was a pretty canned program that went on for 17 years, and it was running very smoothly. And just, again, what you have observed is that there was an incredible impact on the community, incredible collaboration process, impact on both parents and their students and the offenders and their parents. So you were hitting 4 different groups of people. And having been involved with, working with community service sites and calling parents and calling sites and doing a lot of the follow-up, I had my hands in it everywhere. So I know what it takes to run it. I know how grateful parents were that they came through the program and that their kids got this opportunity. Because it's one thing to do a station adjustment and you're paying a fine, and I'm not saying that that's wrong, but you're paying a fine and you just kind of do what you have to do and then you're done. When you're going through this program, it's a diversionary program that is so important, and the kids and the parents all learn something from it. And we were actually starting to change the culture because we asked these students and their parents to rise to the occasion. To rise to the occasion as far as being alcohol-free, and those are some of the things that were coming up. So I don't have to convince you. I know that you're very obviously on board with this. But, definitely consider the regional program. There is, I know I work very closely with Lori Rosinski, who ran the program, who designed all the trainings, who personally met with parents, to have like a 1 meeting time with family. I mean, it was the combination of all of those items that really made the program work. Not only the assignments, the community service, the hours, it really made a difference. and just following up with the parents. So it was a very huge program and collaboration, and you can get that, I think, again. You may have to do a little convincing again because you start getting new people,
Right.
and new police chiefs, and they're not familiar with the program or what it was. But you having attended balance and restorative justice, you understand what that's all about. And it's not about letting kids off the hook, but it's about really understanding how am I paying my debt to my community, and what does that mean? And it's not just paying a fine, it's understanding why I did what I did and how I would like to maybe not do that in the future. And so it's a very, very worthwhile program. And if you need assistance, if you need volunteers, if you need some consulting or help, be happy to do that. I don't know where Lori stands with this right now. I know she's very interested. She sent me the agenda for this evening, to make me aware that this was happening, so I'm glad I was able to come. I know she's on a mission trip or she would have been here. But thank you for letting me speak. It's just, I think all of the things that you mentioned are important. And just one more thing, the regional program, the reason that we did a regional, that ours was so successful versus some of the others that were in the area, is because it was so large. So the students could maintain anonymity, and that was very important. And we had them sign confidentiality clauses. They had to sign for that. They had to do codes of conduct. We expected them to raise their standards and meet those standards. And we also made sure that the parents were very aware of the standards we were expecting from the students as well. And we interviewed them, and we made sure that we asked all the questions about what you're doing in your life. And, we didn't want these students coming before us with some of the same issues that the offenders were coming before us. So just a little background there, and, any way that we can help out, we'd be happy to do so.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. And from my perspective, I think that the maximum benefit here and the best outcome would be for a regional program with as much participation by as many communities as possible for all the reasons you mentioned and then some. And certainly, as mentioned, I will be glad to lobby my peers at other communities. I know chiefs will do that with their peers. But if I could ask one thing, for residents who live in other communities that have participated in this or would like to participate in it, your voices are equally strong, and I would encourage you to reach out to your leaders in your communities, encourage them to take advantage of this, because I think it's great if it's just Downers Grove. I think it's superior if it's regional and it encompasses multiple communities, because again, I think that's one of the main reasons why I'm interested in this, is the opportunity for intergovernmental cooperation and to together achieve more than we could individually. So that would be my one ask, is that when we're lobbying, I would ask everybody else to lobby their individual communities too for as much participation as we reasonably can expect. Thank you for your comments. Other questions or comments from members of the audience? Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Annie Gaudia, and I have kids that were involved in the Pure Jury program. I work with teenagers. I have teenagers. Teenagers make mistakes. I'm sure that the restorative justice program, you learn this. And I think if we label them as criminals, they will mold into that. If we give them a chance to become something else, where they get forgiveness and they make up for their crime, then they will go toward that path. So I think this program is very important for that reason. And I don't think any of you have to be convinced of that. It sounds like everybody is behind the validity of the program. Another thing to consider is that the offenders that were put through this program and restored through this program, the non-reoffender rate was something like, do you know, like 97%. So, obviously just so they got 18, because then they're in the other system, we don't track them anymore. So 97% of the kids that went through this program did not commit another crime by the time they turned 18. So there's a cost savings there. If we're looking at cost, the cost that we don't have to put them through the system again. So just another thing to think about when you really have to think of the nuts and bolts and the numbers on paper, that there is a savings in the restorative nature of the program as well. So thank you all for listening. I really hope that this makes it up and running again.
Thanks for your leadership on this.
Well, I was going to have a comment on that a little bit, so stay tuned. That was a nice foreshadowing. Thank you for sharing that. Other questions or comments from the audience? Well, then I'll pick up. Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, I think it's a great program, anytime that you can have either restorative justice or a deterrent factor at much lower cost, that is an investment. I do like the idea of the regional fair jury. I would assume that the sections of Downers Grove that are in different townships, York and Lyle, would also be included in this, being part of Downers Grove.
Yes. Thank you. Other questions or comments? Well, just to pick up on what you said a moment ago, I want to thank my colleagues because it would have been very easy for the township's decision to have gone by the wayside and for Downers Grove to have said, well, okay, wasn't our program, we're not picking up, we have enough of our own problems to worry about, and yes, we do have enough of our own problems to worry about. So I want to thank my colleagues. I'm actually very proud of this council for having taken the leadership on this. Thank each and every one of you, and of course, we couldn't do any of this without staff's participation, who once again, how did you put it, made a better mousetrap, or once again, putting a square peg in a round hole. It seems like you've got your file out and you always figure out how to do that somehow. So thank you. But again, I want to thank my colleagues for picking this up, because we didn't have to, and there's communities that wouldn't have. So I'm very proud of this town and this council for your leadership.
Given the dollar amount, do you need further direction?
No, in fact, that was also the mayor's question. This is as clear direction as you can get. Everybody said explore option 4.
Well, I always have to ask the question.
Yes, thank you.
You have clear direction.
We do. Thank you so much. As far as what people can expect for next steps, council and community.
That's my other question.
As the mayor just said, we need to go back and touch base with the other municipalities, the ones that previously participated in the Downers Grove Township model, and perhaps a few others who might be interested to participate. So we'll meet with those leaders in the police and administration and figure out who might be interested in taking this journey with us. Then we have to further develop the operating program and the implementation schedule, as was mentioned, so we can see if we can meet these deadlines. We will also reach out to the potentially participating high schools to start talking to them about how we can start the juror recruitment process and how we can meet with student populations as quickly as possible. And on the technical side, probably some sort of intergovernmental agreement or memorandum of understanding with the participating municipalities. This is different than the previous township program, which did not require those sort of formal arrangements because all the municipalities were within the township. So we will have to enter into agreements or MOUs on that. And that's why, to the mayor's point, if you're from another municipality that might be interested, please approach their staff or elected officials, express your support for this, because eventually their councils or boards will have to approve some type of agreement for the reimbursement and cost sharing program. So we will keep the community and the council posted as we move along. We'll have to do a lot of work in the next couple of weeks, so we'll keep it posted. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Any final thoughts, questions, comments from the council? All right, very good. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us in the committee room and for all your comments and input and for your patience as we work through this, because we do have, if there's one thing we believe in Downers Grove, it's process, and it's worth it because good process engenders good results. So we'll see. So with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you and good night.